What's going on, guys? We're back for episode 2 of Hard Knox UT with myself, Michael Farber, and Cody Henry. Today, we're going to be having two separate interviews. One with Steven Ngati of Fanatics Perspective on YouTube. Check out his YouTube channel. And the second interview is going to be with Trey Wallace of Rocky Top Insiders. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back with you after the interviews.
Thanks for coming back, guys. Hey, guys, as promised, we are here with Trey Wallace from Rocky Top Insider. We're going to talk a little season preview, get a little, maybe some insight from fall camp. What's up, Trey? How's it going?
It's good. It's good, man. Just, I don't know, just staying busy, all these morning practices and whatnot, and getting a chance to talk with a lot of players, which is good. So it's we're in fall camp mode, man. We're like 3 weeks away. I guess Thursday will be 3 weeks away from the start of the season. So it's here.
From a media standpoint, how do you feel about that? Like morning practices as opposed to afternoon practices?
I mean, you can't beat the heat. I mean, that's good that it's, not 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it's 95 degrees. And I like it. Some people don't. And that's okay, but I do, especially when we get to, so we're at practice and then kind of like, giving you a breakdown of how it goes. We're at practice and then, we come off the field and then we have, we come off the field probably around, let's say 9:30. And then we're waiting until about 11:15 until we get a coordinator. Like, for instance, like, we would get like Glenn Ellerby, at like 11:05. And then what we would do is after Ellerby or Brian G. Merritt, whoever's done, then we go outside and we get to talk with players, and that usually lasts about 30 minutes. So I like it. I mean, you're getting all your interviews and your stuff done from footage wise and everything. You're done by 12:31. Then it's all about, the rest of the day. It's all about putting it together and articles and whatnot. So yeah, I'm digging it.
Okay. I know I looked into it a little bit and they said it was the first time Tennessee had really done morning practices since Dooley, and that just kind of should have shivered down my spine. I don't want anything.
I think you'll be okay.
I mean,
don't worry about.
If we can put up points and have a Tyler Bray like quarterback, I'm fine with morning practices, but I don't want that Derek Dooley defense to come back.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Once these kids start going to class. Once they have to get back in that routine of going to practicing in the mornings, getting your meetings done, therapy, and then you're spending all afternoon in the classroom. Then coming back to the facility at night to go over tape and whatnot. So, it'll be a grind for these players, once I think classes start, I think the 18th, 19th, something like that. So we'll see. But right now, I think the players like it and it kind of gets their day going. They have more free time in the afternoon.
Right.
Yeah, not bad.
All right. Week 1, the Raging Cajuns. No, that's Texas. Wow.
The Falcons.
Yeah. All right. Week 1, Bowling Green. Nice little blooper there. All right. Yeah. Week 1, the Falcons. And that's part of the mix up there. For Tennessee and Texas both, they both have kind of like okay, what do our defenses look like? Texas obviously has the more grueling opponent there with the Raging Cajuns. They like to put up points. But even with Bowling Green and Tennessee, wouldn't you say Tennessee needs to hold them to like 3, maybe 10 points to really set the season up on defense?
I mean, honestly, I think there's going to be moments where the defense is going to sputter a little bit in the opener, and that's okay. You have to remember, too, they've been going up against, and they will be once the season gets here, first game, going up against this fast-paced offense, every day in practice. And, this is not the same Bowling Green as it was like 4 to 5 years ago, because Bowling Green was kind of like a name. You know what I mean? Like, people around college football, like, they knew who Bowling Green was just because you see him so much in the MAC. And then I don't think Tennessee fans can forget because Dave Clawson, at Bowling Green. So But I think defensively, it wouldn't surprise me if Tennessee gives up, 2 touchdowns in that game, something like that. I mean, they're not going to come out there and be perfect first game of the season.
Right.
But, I think expectations should be, okay, keep Bowling Green under 21 points. I think that is a reasonable expectation.
Wasn't it like 2015, they put up like 30-something points on us?
Yeah, that was at
Nashville.
Nissan. Yeah, Nissan Stadium. Yeah, I do remember that. That came down. It didn't come down. Well, it kind of did. Fourth quarter type thing when Tennessee finally broke it away. But no, I think they'll be fine. And it's all about what Tennessee can do on offense to kind of predicate, how the defense plays.
Right.
I'm going to find out real quick.
Yeah. All right. Week 2, Pitt. You got the Panthers coming to Knoxville. They've got a killer defense. They got Kenny Pickett's senior quarterback with a big arm. What does Tennessee need to do to win that game?
Whew, man, that's the
bringing out the bats here. Let
me tell you something. That is going to be, usually we talk about like an SEC game is like the pivotal point in the season, like that Florida game usually is, and seeing what Tennessee does. To me, it's Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh has themselves a quarterback. They've got an offensive line, got a pretty decent defense, I would say, and it's a veteran group. So the Pittsburgh game, as crazy as it sounds, that's the pivotal game of the season. And I say that for 2 reasons. For the obvious, you want to beat Pitt. You don't want to lose at home to Pittsburgh, to an ACC team. But also, from a program standpoint, Tennessee cannot afford to lose the second game of the year, because right now we're at that point where Tennessee fans are not even bought into what's going on at the moment. They're interested in the quarterbacks. They're interested to see what the offense will do, and I get that part. But if you come out and lose that second game of the season, and then you got to turn around and play Tennessee Tech, and then Florida, and I know we'll talk about that, but you're setting yourself up for a long season of apathy and people not caring fully, I guess is the best way to put it. Because, and I've asked a couple of Tennessee fans, what would it be like if Tennessee, comes out and loses the second game of the year at home, and then knowing you got to travel down to the swamp a couple of weeks later. I'm just saying that Pittsburgh game, man, is going to be so key for Tennessee to set up what they want to do for the rest of the season. And, I don't know what to say about how Tennessee's offense will be able to manage against Pitt right now, just because we don't quite know the starting quarterback, even though I have a feeling who the quarterback will be. But I think offensively, Tennessee can try to, I watched a couple of Pitt games, not the whole games. I broke them down, play by play, this offseason. And if Tennessee can spread the field and extend them in coverage in the secondary, then I think Tennessee will be fine against Pittsburgh. The problem is, Pittsburgh's going to try to run the clock, and they're going to try to, that time management's going to be on their side. So how does Tennessee's defense match up in that mark, especially when it comes to depth-wise? And so that's key to me. And it's going to be all season. Tennessee can't go 45 seconds on a drive and then want their defense to come right back on the field, because I just don't think Tennessee has the depth at certain spots for that. So we'll see.
All right. Assuming Tennessee Tech is a win, week 3.
I would hope so.
Let's just for hypotheticals, let's say Tennessee's leaving out of Knoxville for Florida 3-0 with the pivotal win over Pitt there in the early non-conference. Florida, the week before Tennessee plays Alabama. Do you think that's a big advantage for Tennessee?
Yeah, yeah, because Tennessee, plays the Golden Eagles, and Florida's playing the Crimson Tide. And if I'm not mistaken, that game is in Gainesville. Is that game in Gainesville?
Yes.
Yeah. So right, and it's going to be a prime time game for Florida. It couldn't set up better for Tennessee.
Right.
I mean, if Tennessee's rolling in 3-0 and, they can get the backups in against Tennessee Tech and keep your guys rested, and go into Florida against a team that probably will be coming off a loss to Alabama.
Right.
We'll see what Alabama does until they really get on the field. But expectation-wise, should be an Alabama win. But we've seen crazy things happen in the swamp. I would say that would benefit Tennessee. I don't expect Tennessee to go down there and win, but if Tennessee can figure out that offense, their offense, and kind of get things hitched out over the course of 3 games and be able to go down to Florida and I don't even want to say make it competitive. Tennessee has positions where they're right on the same page as Florida. Some they're not, but some they are. It can make things interesting for the Gators, especially if they, had that grueling contest against Alabama and, they're tired and beat up and the Vols are coming in rested, their starters. Crazy things have happened in this world. I'm not saying Tennessee's going to win. I'm just saying they could make things interesting for the Gators.
Yeah. You get a couple guys benched that game, and who knows what happened. Florida's already had an injury this camp with Jaden Hill, the cornerback that tore his ACL last year. He's torn his ACL again this year. Really hate it for that kid.
I'm interested to see what happens with Brenton Cox too.
Yeah, I think that's going to put. I think the Hill injury that's going to put Elijah Blade in a starting role maybe,
which he's good enough for. By the way.
Oh yeah.
So the Florida game, that'll be a measuring stick for Tennessee. Besides, the Pittsburgh game, second week of the season. But how does this team respond going into a hostile environment? In the swamp. So I'm intrigued by that one.
So coming off the trip to Florida, we've got Missouri. Could you see that trip, our trip to Florida, down there in Gainesville in the swamp, just like we were talking about Florida coming off Alabama, us coming off Florida? Could you see that one loss turned into 2 for us against Missouri if we don't come out of the swamp with the right mindset?
I think Missouri's good. I do. I think they have a good quarterback. I think they have a good system that they're putting in place on offense. I think their defense is going to be pretty decent this year. I think, Missouri's around like that 4th best team in the East.
Yeah, they're complete.
Right. They have a complete team. They're not, it's not a bunch of 5 stars, nothing like that, but it's a complete football team. And, if there's 2 ways to play it. If Tennessee gets shellacked, in Gainesville, what's that do mentally for them playing Missouri? But right now, I think Missouri on offense, again, that's going to be tough for Tennessee to defend because, again, they get pressure, on Bazelak. And if you can't get pressure on him, he's going to sling the ball all over you. And, the problem is, can Tennessee linebackers cover a slant? And, can Warren Burrell or Alante Taylor do their business? So, yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it right there with Tennessee having to play Florida, and how would they respond, potentially coming off a loss right there. And, yeah, I mean, 1 could turn into 2 and, but I don't think that's an over-exaggeration of maybe what's kind of expected this year because that Missouri game is going to be tough anyways.
Oh, yeah. And it really kind of stinks for Tennessee because everybody was so relieved to get that Georgia game moved later in the year. That way you're not Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and now here comes Missouri. Everybody's been picking on poor old Eli Drinkwitz, and now he's actually got a team, and now it's just as worse going to Florida, Missouri.
He's got himself a quarterback. The Drink's not playing around, man. So it'll be that one will be an interesting game on Tennessee's schedule. I've scoped out about 3 or 4 games that intrigued me this year, and that's one of them.
Do you think if we would have played them later in the year last year, that's probably a loss?
Yeah, because of how much they came on that second half of the season.
They started 2-3, but they finished strong 3-2 to finish 5-5. So
you got to remember how that game went down too. In a couple plays here or there from Missouri, not messing up. Tennessee might have put themselves in a bad spot, even though they played pretty decent that second game of the year. But we saw how good Missouri was, towards the end, and how Drinkwitz was kind of turning things around.
Right. All right, week 6, South Carolina. I think Tennessee probably makes it 3 straight here. I'm going to upset some South Carolina fans. I think they probably made the worst hire in the country with Shane Beamer. What are your thoughts on that? No?
Here's how I'll put South Carolina. Shane Beamer to me is, I think in the long run, I think Shane Beamer turns out to be a good CEO of a program and is able to delegate certain things, on the coaching staff. I'm not saying South Carolina is going to be, some world beater and top 3 in the SEC East, but I will say that it seems like, that program over there has a little bit of energy to them, something new. It's got to be, better than dead Will Muschamp.
Beamer's recruiting well so far.
Right,
sure.
and he's recruiting well. And he's that young whippersnapper type of coach. You know what I mean? And a guy that's been around college football for a long time. So I say that to say this: if Shea Beamer can do his job of not trying to stick his nose into everything and let his coaching staff do the work, then 2-3 years from now, maybe South Carolina can get back rolling again, in a sense of vying for that second, third spot in the SEC East. But that's a game Tennessee can't take lightly.
No.
Even though I think Tennessee should win, I still think South Carolina, could potentially have a little mojo. Shane Beamer's not backing down from anybody. And if you know his dad, you know where he's learned that from. I still think the Gamecocks are a little bit wild off, but I do think that they have a pretty decent coaching staff over there. And I do think that they have some playmakers at certain spots. So, I would count that as a Tennessee win right now, though.
But the last thing Tennessee wants to get caught doing is looking ahead to that next game. Ole Miss, all-time record 44-19, but there's a lot more at stake than just taking a loss to a past rival. You got Lane Kiffin coming back to town.
It's going to be fun. And, Lane's been back here before, but not in that head coaching role. Right. And I think that I don't care what Tennessee's record is when they play Ole Miss. It's just going to be wild in general. You have to remember, too, and I'm not saying the connection straight to Kiffin, but, look at the OC spot that they have. There's ties to the UCF type program. I mean, not loose ties, but there's kind of ties to the program.
And can you, do you got that Ole Miss OC's name off chance? I had it, but I lost it. Who is it?
Jeff Levy?
Yeah, Levy. Because when we first hired Heupel, the big thing was he was going to come here with Heupel, and that never worked out.
And you have to remember too that Heupel and Kiffin are familiar with each other and pretty much the whole darn UCF staff because of recruiting battles that they had in the state of Florida.
Right.
Against FAU when Kiffin was down there during his time, even though Heupel was that first year, I think he'd have gone up against Kiffin, but then also, even being under Frost, something along those lines, so they know each other. And, once you get 2 offenses like that on the field at the same time, the defense might as well take a back seat in that game. In my opinion, it's all about who gets to 60 first.
Even, I mean, not knowing our quarterback or anything like that, that game already has a shootout type feel to it.
Yeah, and I like what Ole Miss has a quarterback. I like Corral. I really do. He's a fun quarterback to watch. If you're just a college football fan, he's somebody that's very entertaining, and especially when you let Lane Kiffin get his hands on him in a sense and know what they're trying to do, he's fun to watch. So that'll be an interesting game. I don't even know which way to call that one, but I tell you, no matter what Tennessee's record is, it's going to be crazy because fans will be excited because Lane Kiffin's coming back to Knoxville.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hopefully it's a good weather game, night game. Maybe we can get rowdy, get loud, run Kiffin out of there.
What about black uniforms for that game?
Ooh, I like it.
Kind of a back at you Kiffin type thing?
Don't get my hopes up.
That'd be the perfect time for them to use the black uniforms, though.
I hadn't even thought about that. And the Vol shop, they just got those black uniforms in. So
there's going to be alternate uniforms. I'm not gonna.
Danny White and Josh Heupel, they killed the alternate uniforms at UCF. They absolutely killed it.
Yeah, that'd be a fun game to do it. Night game, go out the tunnel. Yeah.
So would you think the better Week 8 strategy is just to come out of Tuscaloosa healthy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because Tennessee's gonna have a tough time matching up against Alabama, and I think that's one of those games too. And I'll be honest with you, where Tennessee tries to maximize what they do in the run game as well. If there was ever a time to use the clock to your advantage, it's against Alabama. So I'm not saying they're going to come out, run the ball every play, but you need 4, 5 minute, 6 minute drives, against Alabama. So, coming out of that one and playing that, that one's going to be an interesting one, how Tennessee does it.
I mean, one of Jeremy Pruitt's better games when he was here was when he ran the clock against Alabama, and if it wasn't for the 99-yard touchdown fumble return, that game could be interesting in the fourth quarter.
It could have been. It'd been a 7 or 8 point game at that point. So
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. And the Henry, everybody would be attached on to the Henry To'oTo'o thing as well.
Oh yeah.
Lots of storylines for that Alabama game. Lots of storylines.
Hopefully by Week 8 we've got this offense popping. Maybe we can force a shootout battle there.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about them rotating 3 or 4 quarterbacks in Week 8 of the season. So
right.
Tennessee fans are fine on that standpoint.
So what do you think Tennessee's sitting at the bye week? I've got them 5-3 at the bye. That's probably pretty hopeful, but wouldn't you say at least 4 wins by the bye would have you sitting pretty happy as a Tennessee fan?
Yeah, I would have them sitting at 4-4 at that mark. Because you beat Bowling Green. I would say you beat Pitt, take care of Tennessee Tech, beat South Carolina. That's your 4 wins right there. Just don't know, about the whole Missouri thing, at the moment. But I think 4-4, going into that scenario, you've got an opportunity to get 2 down the stretch and get to 6 wins, which that's kind of what I predicted for Tennessee to have this season, be 6 wins. So
3 wins or less, Tennessee fans are probably burning couches, wouldn't you say?
3 wins or less, it's going to be rough in Knoxville. 3 wins or less, and they're looking forward to, basketball season.
Oh yeah, fall ball. Get the Vitello train rolling again.
Right, exactly.
So then you go Week 10. You got Kentucky. Tennessee's in a weird spot with Kentucky. With Tennessee or Kentucky beating them at home last year for the first time since 1984. That's a game I'm sure every Tennessee fan will definitely want us to go up there and dominate. How do you feel? Kentucky feels really good about their quarterback position. What do you know about that, and how do you think they'll fare?
I like Hazelwood at Kentucky. I do. I've kind of followed him, quarterback situation, followed him when he was at Auburn, and if you're from the state of Alabama, you always hear, who the quarterbacks are down there and how they potentially play. Look, Kentucky's going to be a good football team this year. I think that – I don't think that – I'm going out on a limb by saying that. I think Kentucky is an 8-win, 9-win type football team. I think they've got a running game. I think they've got a quarterback situation that'll work itself out, and I think they're going to be good on defense. Tennessee is, you look at this game and you would say, okay, it's Tennessee, Kentucky. Tennessee should beat Kentucky. I'm telling you, this year is one of the things where Stoops got the Wildcats in a nice little spot. Right now, I don't chalk that up as a win for Tennessee.
Yeah, that Tennessee should be Kentucky mindset. I feel like that's how everybody went into last year. and it was an eye opener.
Right, exactly. And I just think Tennessee's in a spot, and we'll see and that's the thing. Who knows what this offense looks like by that time, and who knows how Kentucky's season is going. But if you just ask me right here at this moment, I think Kentucky is in a little better spot as a whole, as a team. Maybe not better like every single position, but as a whole, I think that would give Tennessee problems that they'd have to, fight against. Yeah.
Well, it's, right now on Twitter, you see a Kentucky fan talking about their season prediction, and as soon as you click on it, there's Tennessee fans in the replies, and they're saying, "Oh, this person isn't in Knoxville anymore. This person's in Knoxville anymore." If you watched that Tennessee-Kentucky game last year, I mean, it wasn't just one or two person. That the whole team fell flat that day.
Yeah, and that's what you can't have in situations like that. And, again, what's Tennessee's record at the point? Are Tennessee players still dialed in? A lot of factors go into that one. And that's why I think that Kentucky game is even more interesting than previous years.
All right, we got 3 games left here. We got Georgia. Tennessee has, for some reason, scheduled it for homecoming. I don't think they meant it to be a diss on Georgia. They claim it's something to do with scheduling, but I'm not sure why November 20th is too late and November 13th works fine. But
because they want a packed house at Neyland Stadium, that's why they made it homecoming.
Right.
They want 100,000 in there no matter what. So, you make homecoming against a rival, an SEC rival, you're pretty much guaranteed to at least have 90,000 in the stands.
So the last time Tennessee scheduled an SEC opponent for homecoming was in the 80s, and that was Auburn, and Tennessee got blown out 59-20.
Damn.
Yeah. What are the chances Georgia blows Tennessee out 59-20 in Neyland this year?
I don't think it'd be that. I don't think it'd be that bad or anything along those lines.
That's pretty rough.
Here's the thing about Georgia to me. Georgia's had this type of talent that they've had for the last 6 years, and they haven't been able to capitalize on it with a national championship. I always said, I'm kind of going back a little bit, but and when they didn't win a championship, when you had guys like Sony Michel or DeAndre Swift or players like that in your backfield to where they are right now, I don't want to say it passed them, because I think this could be one of Georgia's most talented teams that they've had since Kirby Smart has been there. They've got the quarterback situation nailed down. They got the defense. You got the offensive line. Your running backs are going to be stout. Interested in the wide receiver spot. But I think, this is going to be look, it's a rivalry game, and it's homecoming, and you would think the players would be up for, something like that. They don't want to get embarrassed, and also they want to put up a fight against Georgia. Here's the thing too. We've seen Tennessee teams in the past that aren't that good actually put up fight against these teams that are supposed to win national championships or contend for national championships. Like, we've seen that in the past, and things kind of fall apart in the fourth quarter, into the third, something like that. It's going to be tough. Tennessee's not going to be beating Georgia, but I don't think it's going to be some massacre, in Knoxville.
So just some numbers. It was Pruitt's second year. The Tennessee-Georgia game was a 12-point game in the third. And then you had the next year, Tennessee's leading 14-0. That's when Brian Maurer was chucking the ball and then took the big hit from Eric Stokes. And then last year, they get the fumble recovery in the end zone, play number 1, and they're leading Georgia at halftime. And so it's just like, when are we ever going to get that big second half against Georgia to close out that game?
That's the thing. I mean, and it's kind of like I just said, Tennessee's always hung tough until certain moments where things just go downhill. It's not like Tennessee's offense was clicking
right
last year at times, but I will, Garantano had that was that game where Palmer, got his toe in right there in the end zone. Had 2 beautiful tight plays. So what I'm getting at is, Tennessee seems to get up for these type of games. They're not going to lay down. I just think Georgia's a little bit too talented. Well, let me rephrase that. I think Georgia's way too talented for Tennessee right now, but that's not like Georgia's going to come in and win by 38 points.
Even with Tennessee taking about 10 years off the relevant stage, the series with Georgia sits at 25 and 23, 2 ties in favor of Georgia. Before Josh Heupel's 10 years over at Tennessee, will we see that series tied or the Vols take the lead?
You got a better chance of time in taking the lead. So
Right.
I'll go with the tie part before I say taking the lead, because we'll see how long Josh Heupel's in Knoxville.
We may see a tie with Georgia. All right, South Alabama. You're a South Alabama guy.
That's my team. That's my school.
What are you giving me on week 12, Trey? What are we
I'm
seeing from the Jags?
I'm giving you Jake Bentley as the quarterback. I'm giving you Major Applewhite as the offensive coordinator. I'm giving you a top 10 receiver in Tolbert coming back this year. And Tennessee should beat South Alabama by 30 points. but don't overlook, and I'm really not just saying this because, I went to South Alabama and graduated from South Alabama. They actually have a good offense this year. So, where's Tennessee at in their season? When it comes to record-wise, how dialed in are they when a team like South Alabama can come in and throw the football around, which Tennessee should beat by 30 to 40 points? And I completely understand that. But, it's pretty crazy that of all these years that have passed, Jake Bentley is going to line up under center and play Tennessee again for the second different school in 5 years. That's mind-blowing to me.
They South Alabama was putting up some points last year, and Jake Bentley was a big pickup for him. I hadn't thought about it, but he would be, I think, the 4th quarterback. If South Alabama were to pull the miracle and win, he would be the 4th quarterback to beat Tennessee at 2 different schools.
That's a crazy stat. Yeah, they got a good coach. Kane Womack's a good coach, and like I said, offensive coordinator wise, it's Major Applewhite, and they'll have some things dialed up. But South Alabama played Tennessee tough like 5 years ago. I would expect them to come out and play tough again. But, Tennessee should be the talented group, and they should be throwing the ball all over the field against the defense.
That game kind of gives me, Pruitt's first year against the Charlotte 49ers for homecoming. It was like 14-7.
Yeah.
That was a nerve-wracking night. This South Alabama game, it gives me those feels. I'm like, oh, please
don't let Tennessee roll in. Just don't let Tennessee roll into that game without an opportunity to play for a bowl game. You got a motivated group from my hometown, so we're just having some fun here. I expect Tennessee to win.
Oh yeah. All right, Vandy, last game of the year. Vanderbilt hasn't recorded an SEC win in almost 2 years when they beat Missouri October 19th, 2019. We haven't seen Clark Lee take the field with the Commodores yet, but just from some of the things I've heard out of Nashville, I think he's a solid coach. I think he's probably the best they've had since James Franklin. What do you think's going on out there in Nashville?
I like their quarterback. I like Ken Seals, that quarterback for Vanderbilt. I think Clark Lee has put together a pretty darn good staff for what he could get at Vanderbilt. I do. They're recruiting pretty decently as well at the moment. I think that helps. And you have guys like Barton Simmons, that are part of the program as well, former recruiting analyst and came over there. But Clark Lee, it's going to be a battle for him, trying to do anything with Vanderbilt. It can't really get much worse than what they were doing under Mason. And I think one of the bright spots of Vanderbilt was their quarterback situation with Seals. So, got to figure out a way to get pressure on him. I expect Tennessee to win that game. And I expect Tennessee to win that game by, convincingly, 21 points or so. But again, it's one of those things. What's Tennessee look like at the end of the year? Are they sitting at 5 wins, looking to beat Vanderbilt, for that 6 win, or are they sitting with 4 wins and the game doesn't matter? There's so many different factors that would go into this thing. But Tennessee should beat Vanderbilt. I'm just saying, don't fully overlook what they have at quarterback and wide receiver. They're lacking on defense, but offense wise, they can put up. I think put up 3 touchdowns. Something like that.
I think that's one of those games Tennessee would like to go into it kind of like the Kentucky game, thinking, well, little brother's going to little brother, but you got to remember games like 2016 when we thought we were world beaters and lost to Vanderbilt.
Right.
With Dobbs and Kamara.
Can't overlook anybody on this schedule. Not in Tennessee's spot this year. They just can't.
That's Texas going to figure it out when they get to the SEC. You gotta watch out for everybody.
We'll see how that works out. They're not going. It's not like Texas is going to come in and play for an SEC West title within the first 2-3 years. They got to build up, a little bit of recruiting, and but that'll be fun when it happens down the road. I do think it happens within the next 2 years. I don't think we're not going to wait till 25 for that to happen.
That seems ridiculous.
Yeah, so that'll go down, but I don't know. We'll see. But Tennessee's schedule this year is an interesting one to say the least, and definitely ready to get this thing started.
Well, jumping to that point, what do you think of the Texas and OU move to the SEC? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you not like it? Just what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's awkward at first. You know what I mean? Like when I think of Texas and Oklahoma, I think of Big 12. And that was the weird thing, about Nebraska too. Nebraska made the move over. There are just certain teams like it's ingrained in your head. Okay, this is their conference. It's going to be interesting to see how they react when they get into the conference when it comes to recruiting, because the big thing here too now is they're not going to own the state of Oklahoma when it comes to recruiting. Yes, they'll get the main guys. Oklahoma will out of their state, but you're going to have other big time SEC schools now dipping a lot into Oklahoma. You got a lot of SEC schools dipping even more into Texas. It's not going to just be an A&M or Longhorn battle. Alabama goes into Texas, they can get who they want usually. LSU usually can go into Texas and get, pluck 3 players per class, out of that. You've even seen Tennessee go into Texas and grab, Caden Salter. So what I'm getting at is that, it's going to be an interesting first couple of years when it happens. It's hard. I covered Tennessee beat. So, it's hard for me to think, wow, Texas-Oklahoma is a division game, or Texas versus Tennessee is a division game, or seeing Oklahoma or Texas playing for an SEC title in Atlanta. A lot of these things just going to have to be drilled in your head, to understand it. But I think we were always going down this road of expansion. And I think once they started talking about this 12-team playoff, I think that was then inevitable. It was going to happen. You're going to see expansion. It's a money grab as well. Let's just be real honest with each other here. It's a money grab. Texas saw how much money they can make in the SEC as well, and be a part of that conference. You can get rid of the Longhorn Network. And kind of tie that in with the SEC network. It's all ESPN property anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But I think when it'll be interesting to see how Texas and Oklahoma do over the next 2 to 3 years before they join the conference. That's going to be the big thing to me. Do they come in hot, or does Sarkisian get off to a bad start at Texas, in the first 2 years, and they come limping into the Southeastern Conference and they turn into a punching bag. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Texas has got to take advantage of these next 2 to 3 years. And if they don't, it's going to be hard for them to come in. So, it's still interesting to me. There's a lot of stuff that starts to play out, but, again, when I think Texas, Oklahoma, I think Big 12 title game. I think, the Cotton Bowl. matchup. I don't think SEC yet. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. Yep. How long do you think that takes? I mean, I personally think it'll be 2023 at the latest. I know it's not going to take till 2025. Could you see it happening in next year, 2022?
I think it'd be really, really hard to pull off in 1 year. You have to look at scheduling. And look, the SEC can do a lot of things with scheduling. I'm not saying that. But you have to look at TV rights that they're going to have to negotiate over the next year. Fox is not going to go away. They're going to want their money, when it comes to the Big 12 contracts. And a lot of this is going to have to do, too, what happens to the other 8 teams?
Mm-hmm.
How does that play out? The Big 12 is not going to just say, okay, Texas, Oklahoma, you paid your fee. Y'all can leave after this year. I think they're going to try to soak them for as much as they can. And if that means 2 years, okay. Maybe they can hang on for 2 years in the Big 12. But the Big 12 is just going to try to make as much money as they can from Texas, Oklahoma during these next couple of years. And then they're going to have to bid them a farewell because Texas, Oklahoma will pay the fee to get out of the contract. But I just don't see that happening after this season. After next 2 years, yeah. This season will be kind of tough because I think the Big 12 will put up a fight as much as they can to at least be able to get as much money out of those schools as they can from a TV rights deal. And you have to remember this on top of that, kind of like what I just said. But now the SEC is going to have to go back into negotiations with ESPN. It's not like they can do that in a span of 2 to 3 months or even 6 months to a year. This is something they're going to have to talk about, and they got to plan for the future. And, SEC is going to want this big amount of money, and ESPN is going to want to give them this. And, you also have to remember the SEC on CBS contract that is coming up. So a lot of TV money, put into this and rights fees and stuff like that. So it's better that they take their time and not just rush just to rush, and make sure they get it right when they join the conference.
Tell me about, you said you had an idea you think will be the starting quarterback come week 1. When I watched the Tennessee spring game, I really liked Harrison Bailey. I haven't seen much of Joe Milton at all at Michigan or at Tennessee. Who do you think comes out in the end?
I think a lot of it's going to factor in what happens on Thursday when they have their scrimmage, and then next Tuesday. But being out there, and look, I wasn't a quarterback, and I'm not going to act like I was some coach. But to me, Joe Milton looks like an SEC type quarterback. I'm talking arm strength. I'm talking ability to run. I'm talking, being able to read defenses when it comes to, running a spread or an RPO type deal and what they like to do. But also I think that about Hendon Hooker. I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking Hendon Hooker in this ordeal as well. He's got really good touch on the football. He can get the ball down the field. He can spread things out. He's very athletic, get outside the pocket. And it's kind of different than what Bailey, has ran or, in the past. I know Harrison talked about it media days, this is the kind of system that I can flourish in or whatnot. Well, he didn't run this type of system in high school. And he definitely damn sure didn't run it with Cheney. So, I'm just interested to see this 3-man battle right now. If Harris can come out and show the coaches that he can get the play call from the sideline, he can be that leader that the offense needs. He can get these guys lined up when they need to be, and he can go every 10 seconds and run a play and understand. The biggest thing when I talk to folks, in the past, not now, but the past about Harrison Bailey is him being a vocal leader. And you have to be that in this offense. You have to be the dictator in this offense and get your guys going every single play. Is that the type of person Harrison Bailey is? Well, I think we'll find out over the next 6 to 7 days. But right now, if you're just asking me straight up quarterback wise, I feel like a lot of people got misdiagnosed with what they saw with Joe Milton last year at Michigan because he tore two ligaments in his hand and his thumb area the third week of the season and then didn't tell the coaches about it, until 2 weeks later. So, his numbers go down and his throws don't look as good. And, and I'm not taking up for Joe when I say that. What I am saying is, you saw a hurt Joe Milton towards the end of his time at Michigan when that first game of the season against Minnesota, you kind of saw what he could do throwing the football and running it as well. But I think from a mental standpoint, once he got hurt and once he kind of messed up his thumb and, went through those progressions with Jim Harbaugh, just turned into a different quarterback. So it was always Josh Heupel's plan. Once Milton into the portal and Josh Heupel ended up at Tennessee, the plan was to bring Milton. There was a reason why Joe Milton was on campus a month before the spring game happened. Joe Milton had been in Knoxville, going over the playbook, not with coaches that would break NCAA rules, whatever. Going over the playbook, learning the system, doing it on his own, working out. He was doing this before like the sixth practice of the spring, because he was also still taking online courses at Michigan to be able to graduate. I think Milton does have a better understanding of the offense than people understand.
With Milton being from Orlando, wouldn't you say Heupel was probably recruiting him for years while he was at UCF too?
He recruited him at Missouri.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, he recruited him at Missouri when he was the offensive coordinator. Because you got to remember, Milton's been there 18, 19, 20. So took a COVID year, so technically have 2 years, 3 years left, something like that. So, but he was recruiting him while he was at Missouri. So, Heupel's known about Milton for a long time.
I hadn't really thought about it being that far back, but that would definitely be the timeline.
Yeah. So it's not anything new. Heupel knows what he thinks he knows we can get out of Milton, and I think Milton's starting to show that in practice.
Yeah, I just going over the Tennessee schedule. I have them going 7-5 and possibly 6-6, depending on that Ole Miss game. Do you think 7-5 is a realistic expectation for Heupel in year one?
7-5 to me is overachieving. Everybody will take it, but 7-5 kind of feels like overachieving at Tennessee your first year, especially with the schedule the way it is. But go start the season 3-0, go to Florida, take your licking, and if they could beat Missouri and be 4-1, I think that's how the schedule lines up, if I'm not mistaken. They could be 4-1 at that point. Okay. Now things get interesting because you're playing Carolina, you can get a win. Vanderbilt, you get a win. South Alabama, you get a win. Okay, maybe you got 7 wins sitting there. So, I wouldn't say it's absolutely crazy. I would just say it would be overachieving for the first year and everything going on in the program. That's
where I've got Tennessee too, that 7-5 range, but that might be my orange sunglasses. I would take 6-6. If you go straight by the ESPN matchup predictor, it's got us at 5-7. I would take that. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be like smiling, but I'd be like, all right, we got some work to do. But it's not a disaster. But anything.
It's all about progression, man. It's all about progression. And 5-7 doesn't look good on paper, but you know what? If your team is showing improvement, you feel like you're getting your offense down. Recruiting is decent during the season, and you're getting some more players, that you like, then, and here's, I guess I'll leave it at this. Here's the biggest thing too. Be competitive. Don't get blown out. I think Tennessee fans are just tired of a lot of time just seeing the team get their ass whipped, is the best way to put it. Be competitive in these games, and, don't go get beat by 40 points, and don't get drubbed, against Georgia at home, stuff like that. If you're competitive and you're 5-7, fans will have a better understanding of that. If you're not competitive and it gets ugly at times and you're 5-7, that's when things will be interesting, in the off season when it comes to reaction.
All right. Well, all right. Thanks for joining us, Trey. We'll let you get out of here.
Perfect. Guys, I had a great time. Thanks so much. I look forward to doing this again. And, we'll see what Tennessee does. I can't believe we're getting this close to kickoff, but I'm glad that we're finally here. The wait is over and we can get rolling. But I do appreciate you guys having me on and hope y'all have a great rest of your time before we kick off here in Knoxville.
For everybody listening and watching, look up Trey Wallace on Twitter. He does the beat for RTI. Look up RTI. I'm sure if you're on Twitter, you've heard of Trey Wallace and Rocky Top Insider. But you guys give him a shout out. We're glad he came on the show. Give us a kick-ass interview. And we're gonna let him out of here. Thank you, Trey.
Y'all be good, boys.
Yeah, thanks. What's going on, guys? We got Steven Ngati with us here from Fandom Perspective on YouTube. Over 10,000 subs. What's going on?
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me on, Michael, Cody. Proud to be here. Glad to be here. Can't wait to talk some ball.
Thanks for coming in with us, Steven.
So we had you on here today because we want to hear what your season outlook's like. What do you think? What do you think Texas is going to do this year?
So it's fascinating because we're in a time where we're coming into this season. My outlook is, all right, how do we get to 10 wins? How do we get a Big 12 championship? Get ourselves back on track to where we believe Texas should be and get over that now decade-long drought, right? And then the SEC news drops. And it seems like the focus and everything, like we're just now, as of today, right, August 9th, while I'm sitting here recording with you guys, we're trying to get back on track to like, oh, we have a season we need to focus on right now in terms of handling our business in the Big 12. I think Texas they obviously have the talent to get to the Big 12 championship game. Oklahoma's going to be, I have them ranked in my top 2-3 teams. I'll be real with y'all. I think they should be a national championship favorite. They should be a playoff favorite. But so am I saying Texas should go and win the Big 12 this year and Steve Sarkisian's first season? No, but I do think that they have to do something to try to at least leapfrog Iowa State, teams like TCU, handling their business and trying to get to double-digit wins in year one under Steve Sarkisian. So it's going to be very, very intriguing, especially watching him as a play caller. Can Texas have a more dynamic offense finally? You know, we last year, I mean, I say dynamic offense, we scored 40-something points per game and put up a lot of points, but I don't think any of us would say that offense looked dynamic. So, you know, they've got to be aesthetically pleasing as well, guys.
You mentioned a little different offense this year. I know me and Michael talked last week about your guys' running back core and how he wished last year they kind of would have stuck with the same running back to extend drives. Are you excited to see more of maybe an SEC-style running back situation?
Absolutely. I mean, Bijan Robinson is the face of the program now, and he took that over from Sam Ehlinger. Really, the moment Sam Ehlinger left that Colorado Bowl game, Bijan Robinson is the guy that you look at Najee Harris, to your point, Cody, of what we saw his usage rate was at Alabama, especially in the big games. When they played LSU, when they played Notre Dame, getting the ball in your best players' hands, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Waddle when he was there, right? So seeing that at the running back position where we haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher, I believe, since Deontay Foreman won the dope. And, you know, in the Tom Herman era, we were so quarterback run heavy. So not only were we doing the rotational thing with our running backs, but we also had our quarterback taking up 150 carries a year. So I think having some of that consistency on the ground as well as through the air, Keelan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, they can all catch the football as well. So we have a good supplemental group, in my opinion. I think Michael would agree with me there. But Bijan Robinson is the face of the team.
For sure. Yeah, when I watch your guys' spring game, he was in my notes a lot.
I want to bounce it to the outside. Xavier Worthy, man, he has me excited. Everything coming out of camp is saying he's tearing it up. how do you see him fitting into Sarkisian's offense?
So he's right now the buzz name. Early in camp, he was the name. Basically, as soon as we got him out of the portal way of Michigan, and I really feel like it reminds me so much of when Devin Duvernay fell into our lap from Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
Like that type of excitement about a player we really shouldn't have had, but now we got him. And he has come in and taken our team by storm, it seems like, behind the scenes in practice, separation. I think he has an ability right now. If you look at some of the practice notes you're already hearing through 3 practices, a lot of people were questioning, all right, what's this guy going to look like when they're no longer doing the summer 7-on-7 stuff, but more so getting into contact. And they are saying he is not backing down, and he is challenging Jordan Whittington for snaps. He is challenging, the Joshua Moores of the world. They're like, hey, we got to figure out how to get this guy on the field. And what he brings to the table that we've necessarily haven't seen, other than maybe Kelvonte Dixon, is just raw, unadulterated speed. Texas has to be more explosive. That goes into my point earlier about being dynamic. And Xavier Worthy checks that box where we've missed in recruiting for so many years with the speed guy. So having that, that Cali speed in there helps. So I'm excited to see Mr. Worthy, number 8, out there rocking it.
I'm excited too. We haven't had, I can't even remember the last speed guy we had. I mean, Marquise Goodwin, there was probably somebody before him or since him. But the speed that they're talking about with Xavier Worthy and, another guy like that Sark is trying to bring in is Brendan Thompson with that elite type speed that we desperately need on the outside.
Track type speed, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I can't wait to see it. So I don't know if this is me drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, as Texas fans like to say. I wrote down win-loss for the season, and I have Texas going 11-1. The only 2 tough games I see are OU and Iowa State. I mean, it's going to be a tough start. We'll see how Sarkisian starts out, but if he gets the ball rolling early on, what's to say we don't go 11-1?
So 11-1, it's not just this is why I hesitate with that, because there's 2 sides of the coin here, right? The team finished 7-3 last year, 13-point differential in those 3 losses. But we could sit up here, if we're being real with ourselves, we either could have gone 9-1, 10-0, or 5-5.
Yeah,
like we weren't supposed to win the Texas Tech game if we're being real with ourselves. But so that was the game we were playing under Tom Herman. If we're going to go 11-1, that means the staff has connected so well with the players early on, and we found a home run at quarterback to where we have those consistencies throughout the conference. I agree with you from a standpoint of right now we're currently favored in 10 of the 12 games we have on the schedule. The 2 games you mentioned, the 2 games we're not favored in. We think that by the time we get to Iowa State, we should have an edge in talent. I see where you're going on why we could flip the Iowa State game. I agree with you there. But the consistency is also, are you beating the teams you're supposed to beat? And then when you get into a close call with a team that you maybe were supposed to beat by a couple touchdowns, you can still pull yourself out of it the way we struggle with that before, where we fumble at the end or we miss a field goal or have a holding call on a big play. Like, those are the type of things that are the difference between an 11-1 or even 8-4. So we got to I need to see that consistency first before I get all the way on board with that. Personally.
Yeah. And that's as much grief as we give Tom Herman. How many blowout games was he in where Texas got blown out? I can't remember any.
I don't remember one.
Yeah, you guys finished every game last year at least one possession.
Yeah. There were no games in that I can remember. There's probably 1 or 2, but no games that I can remember where we lost by 2-3 touchdowns, something like that. His teams had hard played all the way to the end, and they kept us in games most of the time. And that's I hope Sarkisian brings that same mentality to the team and that same heart and hustle and willpower and stuff like that. But only time will tell. We'll find out in a little over 3 weeks if that's the case.
No. Well, the start to the season is key. I mean, we're playing
Absolutely. Yeah.
we're playing Cody, one of Cody's SEC brethren in Arkansas, very early, our second game, and we're playing them after we're playing Louisiana, right? Who leads the country in returning production, or at least right there with Iowa State.
Those guys put up some points,
right? So you're starting up. That's where I need to see a consistency up front, right? Like those aren't games where you get to tune up. Like A&M's going to get to tune up for a month before they actually play somebody. Like Texas is jumping right into it with a new quarterback, a new coach, new everything. So we've got to see that they're turning that corner to where we're picking up where Tom Herman's team left off and correcting a lot of those mistakes versus it's like, we got to rebuild some of this, or the coaches start to find out that they need a little bit more, because we've had that happen before. That's why we've had the staff turnover we've had. So right off the bat, those first two games will tell us, I think, a lot about how this season will go, especially when we start Big 12 play.
That's me and Michael had talked about how the Raging Cajuns, they knocked off Iowa State first game last year, how Coach Stark needs to make sure those guys are ready week one, maybe even show them some tape from that game.
Billy Napier, head coach of Louisiana, he's no joke. He turned down that Auburn job. And that guy they have all the confidence in the world with all those seniors and super seniors they have on their team. They're not going to be intimidated when they come to DKR that first game. Now, I will say this, and Iowa State fan will chime in here somewhere in the comments or or hit y'all up on Twitter. Iowa State fan will tell you, hey, we were thrown off. They caught us in the COVID thing, right? Like they caught us right at the beginning when it was weird. There weren't really fans and it was all the chaos. So and they beat them really on special teams. Like they had like kick returns, and it was a whole bunch of things. But that's all you need as one of those G5 teams to get a little juice early in the season is when you catch people. So if you want to catch Texas before people are really, really believing in what Sark is doing, that's the perfect opportunity on September 4th to do it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So going back to what we mentioned earlier, or I believe you mentioned, was the SEC news. That's a big topic right now. When is Texas and OU going to move over? Stuff like that. How was your first reaction to that news, seeing that news first?
My initial reaction was I was shocked by the timing of it, like now, right? And so I was, it was one of those things where you're doing, I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I didn't have my phone with me, and maybe I was at the gym or something. I don't know, but I look up and Twitter's exploding. So everything is, Texas. And it was one of those things where it wasn't just like a rumor. It was like confirmed leaks. Oh, it's happening. And then, Texas not answering the phone. Yeah. OU president's not answering the phone. It's like, oh yeah, they about to leave. So I'm not surprised that I've talked about this for years, honestly, about realignment being a possibility. The timing of it threw me off until I realized NIL kicked in July 1st. This same summer, we had the 12-team playoff unveiled to us in terms of what they want it to look like. Now, it's not fully been passed in effect yet, but I always thought the last domino to fall would be the realignment. So it was kind of a question of who was going to do it first. So I do give Joe Castiglione, Chris Del Conte, Jay Hartzell, all these people involved a lot of credit for saying we want to control our own fate. And the SEC is on board with it because they want to be the first super conference. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. The only people that weren't on board with it were A&M at first, but over time, the money, the dollars, ESPN, Disney being involved makes too much sense. So I think as we've all realized as fans, the TV money controls so much of what goes on. The Big 12, what is the Big 12 without Texas and OU? And we talk about relevancy, TV, numbers, who's tuning in, right? And so when you factor all those things in, it makes sense for Texas, it makes sense for OU.
Absolutely.
So we
talked to answer your question. Oh, go ahead, Cody.
No, go ahead. No, I'm going to switch. So go ahead, Michael.
Okay. To answer your question about what is the Big 12 without Texas and OU, it's honestly a group of 5 conference. I mean, there's no powerhouse in that conference. If we're being honest, the best team would be Oklahoma State, and they're kind of out in the dust. They don't know where they're going to go. The Big Ten doesn't really seem like a fit for Oklahoma State. The Pac-12 would be the best fit, but I don't know if they're showing interest or not. So what happens to a decent-sized university like Oklahoma State?
There's also a question about their academic accreditations and where, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room to know who's connected to what, but I know it matters to the Big Ten. I know it matters to the Pac-12. So there's questions of that as well. These teams are lobbying. And they, Kansas has to sell their basketball program. Baylor's selling their basketball program. They both have elite men's basketball. They can't bring dollars to the table there. Oklahoma State would be a good team to have in your conference if you're asking them to be the 6th or 7th leg, right? The problem is the Big 12 was trying to figure out who the hell was going to be the 3rd leg to carry up the conference. And those aren't those type of teams. But Oklahoma State, they're solid across every program, men's and women's. Tech went to a national championship game in basketball. They have a good baseball program, TCU as well. But to your point, if you're talking football in terms of the numbers, they are G5 of what they've produced. So it's one of those things. And I know a lot of people have been arguing, especially the people that are traditionalists, about what's right for college football, not always chasing the dollar. Is it right to Texas, things of that sort? So it's been frustrating to see from a different fan's perspective, I believe.
Mm-hmm. You can go ahead, Cody, with your switch.
So we touched on the beginning of the season. I want to talk about a mid-season game. I've seen the video, so I'm sure a couple Texas guys like yourself have seen the video of the senator pointing out 3-7 the last 10 years against TCU. Does that change this year? What's up? What's up with the Horned Frogs?
The Horned Frogs, they've been the thorn in the side, right? And it's frustrating because Gary Patterson, he hates Texas with every bit of his soul. He channels an energy. Their quarterback didn't play well at all last year, but when he goes against Texas, he looks like a Heisman candidate. And each year it was this struggle and this mental battle. But one of the things I've learned from one of the OU guys is execution. When I was talking to them, they were like, we don't have trouble with TCU because at the end of the day, it's really a straight up and down game. They get into, you have all these, especially on defense, they'll try to manipulate a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they're still going to play too high. You just got to beat them. You got to execute your stuff. And Texas has really struggled with that self-inflicted penalties, mistakes. So Steve Sarkisian, can he have the team mentally tougher? I think Tom Herman was so big on physical toughness. Our team was always big. We were always good at the line of scrimmage. That's why we were able to play the way we played against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, because they wanted to play in a phone booth, and Tom Herman was actually good at that style of football. That's why we didn't have that many issues with Kansas State either. They like to play in a phone booth. But teams like TCU, where it comes down to do your job, take what's there. Even our quarterback, I love Sam, but there was times where he would try to force instead of taking that 8 yards and keeping it moving because TCU likes to bait you. They do all those type of things. So looking at this game now, Steve Sarkisian, can he have those guys mentally tougher to say, hey, take what the defense gives you? Ball security is at a premium. And if we execute, we'll beat these guys with our physical talent. So that's going to be one of the biggest keys against TCU. That's actually a game where another game where it's a true serum test about how different the team is.
I've got Texas coming out of that game sitting 5-0. So are you on to say Horned Frogs, horns down?
I just want somebody to get a mic on that senator and see if she has that same energy after that game. And hopefully that's not the last time we play. Who knows? Texas might be in the SEC next year. We might be making a trip to Knoxville to come see you, Cody. Who knows?
All right. Come on.
Go get some. Go say what's up to Mr. Josh Heupel over there.
We can do it. We can find out who the real UT is.
I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready for it. I can't.
What it's
I
all
really
about.
do want to visit Knoxville, though. In all seriousness,
I'm actually thinking about coming down for y'all's that first game against LA or Louisiana. Because Tennessee starts their season on a Thursday night, so after that I could make it down for that Saturday game.
we'd love to have you in
You have to
Austin,
take
brother.
some pics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'll be there, and for anybody listening, game. So if you see me or see Tran, come say what's up.
Absolutely. So to this last question, the QB battle. That's
Yes,
the
sir.
talk of the town right now, other than SEC. Casey Thompson, Hudson Card. I think Hudson is more skilled. He has the better arm. He just doesn't have that experience kind of thing. And that's why I think Casey Thompson will start the season. I don't know if he'll finish the season as a starter, but how do you see that quarterback battle playing out?
So from an experience standpoint, it's very, very, this is a fascinating quarterback battle. And I will say this, I'm team whoever's out there, because with COVID and the way things are rolling right now, you need two quarterbacks. Because something can happen on a Friday. And this doesn't just go for Texas, by the way. This goes for you, Cody, if it's, whether it's Bailey or y'all tried out Joe Milton. You need quarterbacks because somebody tests positive on Friday. And next thing you know, all the people that are Team Hudson, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. You need
now,
to be Team Tennessee. You don't need to be Team this quarterback.
Right, you really do. Now, to answer your question in terms of trotting out opening day starter, Casey Thompson, I think the experience on his side is probably being a little overrated because he didn't get to play as much as he probably should have before for various reasons. The thing, we give him experience because he had an historic performance in the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah,
he had an historic performance. So we saw him come in a very hostile situation, only up 7. I know Colorado wasn't good, but for us, how we were playing teams, he was the one that came in and just, with the help of Bijan Robinson, of course, and Marvion Overshown, but they blew them out. So he's getting that edge, but he really hasn't played a whole lot. And then it's a different offense. So now they're kind of more evened out with the offense thing. A lot of people giving the edge to Carr because, Lake Travis, RPO concepts, a lot of those type of things that Steve Sarkisian likes to do, seems like it's the good fit. I think if you're Casey Thompson person, you want to see, we all want to see him rewarded for his loyalty to the program. When I say rewarded, that means he earned the job.
Yeah.
But I would like to see that as well. However, these scrimmages coming up that we won't get to see as fans, I think Steve Sarkisian, that will help him get clarity on who should trot out there against Louisiana. Because at the end of the day, what you're looking for in the scrimmages is not just who throws the prettiest ball or has the best arm strength. You want to know who's the team responding to. When they get into 2-minute drill, who's making the right decisions, who's not turning the football over. Because the fastest way to lose the job is if you're throwing picks. And if Hudson Card is showing better ball security as a younger guy than Casey Thompson, then he's going to win the job. And he's going to go out there as your opening day starter. I think we're fortunate to have two guys, though. I feel confident when they're out there that we can move the offense and they can run Steve's system. I got to hear more from that first scrimmage before I'm ready to sit here and say I'm all chips in on here or all chips in on here, because it's really that close. And that's how talented both young men are.
Do you have any other questions, Cody? If not, I got one last one.
Steven, just while we got you on here, I've got all these notes from Texas spring game, so I'm going to ask you some of the questions I kind of asked Michael from week 1.
Yes, sir.
Who is wide receiver Josh Moore, and why would he get you excited? Him kind of coming back, maybe getting to have a big season this year.
So I don't want to get his mama upset with me. He is very adamant about being called Joshua Moore.
Oh, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. That's why we share information. So Joshua Moore, he's one of those guys. I like his game. I like the upside, the potential. I've liked him since he came out of high school. The issue with him is consistency and strength and physicality. So you've had situations where Joshua he blew up. He had some games where he blew up. He had 9 touchdowns last year in a 10-game season. That's terrific if you're only looking at the numbers. But Michael knows, games where you couldn't find the brother for 3 quarters. You're like, is he in the game? Right. And so these numbers are kind of inflated in some degree. And now that Troy O'Meary's healthy, we have some other guys on the team. I don't even know if it's a given that he's necessarily going to be trotting out there with the ones come Louisiana. But to go more though, Cody, there was a guy that played for OU a few years ago. His name was D.D. Westbrook.
Yeah.
If Joshua Moore fills out the way he's supposed to, that's what Joshua Moore could look like, in my opinion, is another D.D. Westbrook type of receiver. But he's got to be more consistent with his hands. He's got to be more consistent getting off press coverage and being physical. If he doesn't show those things, especially in this offense now where they're not playing musical chairs with receivers anymore, he won't have then you'll be hearing about more Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, O'Mary, those kind of guys.
Okay. Most of these other guys I've got down, I think me and Michael talked about last week, but I've got one that we didn't because I didn't do the research and get the guy's name, and I still haven't. So you guys had a guy in a no contact jersey, number 21.
That's O'Mary.
Yeah, that's O'Mary.
Okay. Yeah. I've got him marked. Could be a big playmaker, question mark. Does that sound fair?
So Troy is a guy who was tearing camp up last year, tore his ACL. That's why he was in it. So he's still recovering. He's practicing full now. So, you got those young deers still that haven't fully developed. They can recover from the ACL stuff a lot faster than us older folks. But Troy, his size is overwhelming. And what is married with that size is he is explosive. He can run. A lot of these big guys, you see them sometimes, they can't run, but he can run. And he can go up and high point the football. Jordan Whittington has been gushing about the fact that he can just get his hands on stuff that other guys can't get to, kind of like we had with a guy named Colin Johnson a few years ago, but he probably runs a little bit better than Colin did. Colin's very, very athletic and had great verticality, but Troy can run away from people, I think, a little bit at his size. And we haven't had that since like Roy Williams, to be honest with you, Michael, or we had somebody that big and that fast. So that's the upside that Troy O'Meary can bring to the table.
All right. I think that's all I got here.
I have one more for you.
Yes, sir.
This is going to throw it to the NFL. So with Carson Wentz out, unfortunately, you never like to see players get hurt, especially in camp before the season even starts. I hate it for him. Ellinger reports have been Ellinger is tearing it up. He's looking really good. What are the chances that he comes and not only plays week 1, but starts week 1? What do you put those chances at, those odds, if you're a betting man?
If I was a betting man, I would probably put it around 35% that he would be the week 1 starter. And it's not because Jacob Eason is going to hold him. It has nothing to I think what the Colts are learning is that Sam Ellinger probably can be their backup and when I say backup quarterback, like he can be active. Because one of the things that Frank Reich did last year was when they had a guy by Jacoby Brissett, they were actually playing Jacoby Brissett in already quarterback run packages in conjunction with Phillip Rivers. So Sam gives you all those things. That was one of the things that appealed to the Colts because Jacoby Brissett went to Miami. They were like, hey, we can at least have him active on game days. Now with Carson Wentz out, the reason why I have it so low is because I feel like they're going to want a veteran quarterback, and there's going to be guys around the league. Nick Foles right now is running 3rd team, the Chicago Bears. Nick Foles knows that entire offense like the back of his hand and won a Super Bowl with Frank Reich. I'm sure there's some conversations going on behind the scenes there. I've heard, and I don't know if these are rumors, I've heard that Phillip Rivers, depending on Carson Wentz's thing, Phillip Rivers could come back. Now, I say that because I say 35, that this percentage is rising. I think they also want to see how Sam looks in the preseason games. And shout out to the Colts because their ratings are going to be through the roof from the Austin and Central Texas market for those first 2 couple preseason where we know he's going to play a lot. I think that'll be able to tell him if he's able to look in the games the way that these practice reports are sounding, And I think one of the reasons why some people who are a little down on Sam are a little surprised right now, Sam's healthy. Yep. Sam's healthy. Yeah, he's making his throws now. He's not having rib problems, right? And it's all of a sudden like, oh, this guy, people are surprised, but we've seen that from him. We just wanted it consistently help with his health. So excited to see how that plays out. What do you guys think? You guys think he's going to be the starter?
To throw away back with the Colts, and it was a totally different league then, but when the Colts drafted Peyton Manning, there was no question. He went right in and started. Obviously, he was a first-round pick. But I think, when you've got a guy like Jacob Eason, they've seen him for a couple of years. They've seen what happens during the offseason, what he comes back and remembers. But you got a guy like Sam Ehlinger there. This guy's taken no days off. He's been there. He hasn't had time. They haven't seen more of his bad side like they probably have Jacob Eason. Not like you said, not down in Jacob Eason, but Jacob Eason knows, okay, coach don't like this, coach don't like that. Sam Ehlinger's he's just out there slinging the ball. He's just out there balling. So he's not worried about, okay, coach don't like this, coach don't like that. He's just out there doing his thing.
I think Sam's also motivated by the fact that he was a 6th-round pick.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
He has that same energy that Dak Prescott. His personality so much of Dak Prescott, because those are guys that in their minds they believe that they're fantastic quarterbacks, and they can't believe that other guys went in front of them. And that's the type of belief you need that supercharges a staff, that supercharges a roster. And the thing is, it's just, is he healthy? Can he take care of his body? And if he's right now, his study habits, to your point, Cody, first one in, last one out. He probably knows that offense just as well as Jacob Eason does at this point. Right. Yeah. And that's a testament to his study habits.
I mean, the Colts coaches have seen what he's picked up so far. And it's like I was saying with Jacob Eason, not saying that I've got insider information on the Colts or nothing, but they've not only seen what Jacob Eason's learned, but they've seen what he can forget in an off season. And Sam Ehlinger's in there. This is all fresh in his mind.
I hope Frank Reich gives Sam the opportunity to get some snaps against some ones on another team. And let's see what he does, right? Dak Prescott got that opportunity when Tony Romo got injured. And Kellen Moore was in front of him, got injured. And we saw he was really ready. He was balling with with Des Bryant and Jason Witten and all these grown men. There was no uncertainty when he walked in the huddle. Those guys were like, oh, this kid, we trust this kid. He knows what he's doing. I think, there's these guys on offense on the Colts were in the playoffs last year. Some of them been in the league 9-10 years. So for them to be moving and having the success they're having with Sam, that means they believe in the team is responding to his leadership.
So barring some pickup by the Colts, you've got Colts-Panthers this Sunday, and you have to expect to see both Eason and Ehlinger. So this Sunday,
I expect them to trot out Jacob Eason first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, Sam Ehlinger will come out there. And if he plays against the ones, the twos, whatever, I expect him to move the ball. He's going to move the ball.
Yeah, the kid slings the tater.
Absolutely. Like you said, I think the Colts are smart. They might not be putting these, insider reports out there to bring in the Texas fan base. But when Texas fans see that and they know Sam Ehlinger is going to get really good playing time, especially in the preseason, I know I'm going to be tuned in when they play their first preseason game. And I bet a lot of people in Austin are going to be tuned in as well. So I'm excited to see what he does.
Absolutely. We all want the best for Sam, especially, again, our condolences go out to his family for the passing of his brother, Jake, and what he's been through, losing his father early on, his brother, and the young man just continues to press forward each and every day. It's a testament to how to live life, honestly. So everybody should be rooting for Sam Ehlinger, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm excited to see him. It's like a movie a little bit. So
as long as he loses 2 games to these guys, I'm happy with it.
Hey, y'all building up a little super team over there in Nashville, man. So you
Oh man.
don't too worry about the Colts.
Oh yeah.
Y'all are
Oh yeah.
stacked over there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm excited.
AJ, Julio, Derek. I mean,
Big Derek.
woo,
It's coming together in Nashville.
you gotta tackle all them dudes. That's tough.
Oh yeah. I've thought about it before. If Derrick Henry was running at me full speed, I would just give up. There's no point. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Watching highlights of him in high school with civilians trying to tackle him is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen, and especially in the open field where you saw some kids who were just like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Take me out of the game. I don't care. I'm not doing this. It's hilarious.
Absolutely, man.
I appreciate you guys bringing me on. I always love talking ball. Hopefully I get to come back on here to give.
For sure.
I want to see what I want the Volunteers to come back to what they should be at too. Like I grew up watching Tennessee, Florida being one of the top 5 games of the season every year, whether it was Peyton, T. Martin, Casey Clausen, all those guys under the Philip Fulmer era. And I want, Coach Heupel, whatever, like, I hope this is time to, I know y'all had the transfer portal issue, but I'm hoping y'all can come back to your rightful place in the SEC.
No matter what, it's going to be fun, and Vol fans will watch.
Yes, sir.
They always watch.
Y'all always watch. You're right. That's where we share. Hey, no matter what, no matter how much trauma they cause us, we're still there.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Once again, this is Steven Ngati, Fanatic Perspective on YouTube. Go check out his YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. Great content he puts out very often. So make sure to check him out and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, Steven.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Thanks, Cody.
Yep.
Welcome.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in for episode 2 of Hard Knox UT. Before we go, check out our Twitter pages. Michael Farber is head contributor for Longhorns_ATB. You'll find his personal Twitter in the bio. And I run Vols_ATB. Look for my personal Twitter, VolBandit3, in the bio there also. Special thanks to Steven Ngati, who runs Fan Perspective, Fanatic Perspective, and Trey Wallace from RTI. Be sure and go give them a follow for all your Texas and Tennessee needs. We're going to sign off. Please come back for episode 3. Subscribe, be on the lookout, and thank you.